5 ways to get your home ready to sell for under $1,000. We are still in a seller's market. However, that doesn't mean that we are in the same market that we were in 2020 and 2021. Even though this is technically a seller's market, due to higher interest rates, buyers are choosier. So just throwing up a for sale sign in the yard and getting offers that same day probably isn't going to happen in this market. So if you're wanting to sell your home and get top dollar, I'm going to share with you 5 things that you can do for under $1,000. Number one is paint. I've talked about this in a previous video, but painting a home can make a huge difference when you're putting your home on the market. I recently went to an open house the other day, and the pictures of this home online were gorgeous. But when we walked in the house, the walls told a different story. The house was empty, but the first thing that the buyer noticed was how dirty the walls were, especially around the light switches and the door frames and trim. Someone had spilled something on the door and just left it behind. When a buyer walks into the home, and the first thing they think is, how well has this home been cared for? What other problems might I find? Suggest if your walls are in need of a little TLC, for under $50, to get a couple of gallons of paint. This is something you could probably do on your own. Get some rollers and try to touch up the paint best you can to make the walls look cleaner. Now, I'm not saying that you have to paint all the walls or the entire house. Try to match the paint to what you have on the walls now and just do the best that you can touching up the walls to give it a fresh appearance. Number two, as simple as this sounds, floor vents can make a big impact on the house, especially if the house is sitting empty. Again, I recently went in open house and noticed right off the bat that in every room, the floor vents were a different color. But the one thing that they all had in common is they were all rusted. So make a better first impression with something as simple as the floor vents. This is something that you can do for under $100. And it's one of those things that if you have new floor vents put in, the buyer's probably not going to notice the floor vents. But if you leave them rusty, I can promise you the buyers are going to notice. Then the buyer again says, well, if the floor vents look like this, what else is wrong? How does the roof look? What about the water heater or the furnace? It starts a snowball effect with the buyer, how well the home has been taken care of and maintained. You want everything to look like it's been well maintained since you've had the home. Again, the buyer doesn't want a to-do list. Something to remember when putting your home on the market is buyers don't want to come to a home with a large to-do list. So a few of these little things that you can start getting done before the buyer ever sees the home the first time will help selling the home sooner. Today's buyer really likes a home to be as move-in ready as possible. Now, they don't expect everything to be perfect, but as much of these small things that you can get done gives a better first impression, and it gives the buyer the feels. You want buyers to feel, this is my home, not, oh, this looks like a lot of work. So for under $100, replace those floor vents. So number three, light fixtures. Now, I'll admit this one can be a little more costly, especially if you're not handy and you have to hire an electrician. And I'm not saying that you need to replace all the light fixtures throughout the house, but find a couple of key areas that you think will make a big impact. The dining room or the family room, maybe the master bedroom. And try to change out just a few of those, especially if you have some light fixtures that are from 1990 or further back. It might be time to replace those. It helps give the home a more modern feel. Also helps with that move in ready for the buyer. They're not looking at lights thinking that they're going to need to replace them. They'll walk in and go, oh, what a cute light fixture. Then they start imagining the dining room table that they have under that light. Number four, landscaping. This is something that we've also discussed in one of my previous videos, but it's so important that I wanted to touch on it again because when the buyers pull up to the home to see it for the very first time, the first thing that they see, the front of the house and the landscaping. Now, if the landscaping's not perfect, Buyers can look past that. But what buyers can't look past is a lot of weeds in the landscaping. Why? Why does it make a difference to them? It goes back to that to-do list that a buyer doesn't want to see when they're looking at a home. So if they walk up to the house to go in, before they ever make it to the front door, if they see a ton of weeds in the landscaping, what they're going to see is, gosh, if I buy this house, I've got to work on this landscaping. I've got to get new plants. It becomes the to-do list mentality. That's what you don't want. I would suggest spending a little time and pulling all the weeds, or getting maybe your landscape company or lawn service to see if they can pull the weeds and get the landscaping neat and tidy before your very first showing. 5, cleaning. This is definitely a pet peeve of mine. If you're going to put your home on the market and you want to sell this home, make a good first impression, and get the best possible offers, I suggest hiring a professional cleaning company before you have your house shown for the very first time. You can typically get a professional cleaning service to come in for under $200, and this can make a huge impact on buyers when they come and look at your home for the first time. You want it to smell good and look good. You don't want cobwebs in the corners or on the light fixtures. These are things that if you've been living in your home a long time, you may not always see, like fingerprints on the glass or the windows. So a professional cleaning company are going to see those things and make sure that they address them. I would also suggest if you get a professional cleaning company that you let them know that you're getting ready to put your house on the market, and they will be sure and focus on those key areas for you to get those things done. One thing that you don't want to happen when you're showing your house is when the buyer comes to see and they start seeing things that they need to get done if they buy this house, they start thinking right off the top of their head of how much money they can start taking off your asking price. So if you can take $1,000 up front before the buyer ever sees some of these things, you'll find that you'll get better offers. My other videos I will link below. If you enjoyed this video, I would really love it if you would hit the subscribe or the like button so that you can get notified when I post my videos each Friday.